Hey guys, how's it going? Here are some players to add at quarterback for week 6. First off, I'd like adding Joe Flacco of the Indianapolis Colts to your fantasy roster this week. Flacco played lights out in week 5, throwing for 359 yards and 3 touchdowns, while somehow also adding 22 yards on the ground. Flacco is still a really good quarterback at age 39, but his fantasy value is diminished by Anthony Richardson's looming return. However, Richardson is truly questionable for week 6, and if Flacco gets the start, he is the top streaming option for fantasy managers dealing with bye weeks. Next up, I like adding Daniel Jones as well. Jones has had 3 games above 18.3 fantasy points this season, and he is boosted by his ability to run the football. Jones has had 2 games above 30 rushing yards, and he carried the ball 11 times for 38 yards on Sunday. Those rushing yards artificially boost a quarterback's fantasy performance, so Jones doesn't have to play great to put up good numbers in fantasy.
Here are a few wide receivers to add for fantasy football. First, Darnell Mooney, Atlanta Falcons. He's player number 52 overall. All right, he's a clear second option. He's getting a lot of targets, and the Falcons' offense is pretty good. Next, Alan Lazard, New York Jets. I know the Jets aren't that good, but he is a number 2 option, getting about 7 targets a game, and he's who Rodgers looks to when he's trying to score a touchdown. Next, Josh Downs, Indianapolis Colts. All right, as long as Flacco's in, he's a clear number 1 option there. But I would bench him or just not have him until you know how he'll do with Richardson. So again, it's depending on Flacco. Finally, Dontavian Wicks, Green Bay Packers. I know a lot of people were disappointed this past week, but the targets were there. He had 7. The last 2 weeks, he has had 20, and he still should be a top 3 option while Christian Watson is out.
These are my waiver wire pickups at running back for week 6. Starting off, we have Tank Bigsby. He ran for over 100 yards and scored 2 touchdowns this week. He looks like the better back in Jacksonville, and sorry to those of you that drafted ETN in the second round, but he should remain fantasy relevant and is definitely flexible as we manage through the bye weeks. Next, I have Tyrone Tracy. He ran for 129 yards with Devin Singletary out. The Giants have been a surprisingly good team this year, and if Tracy does take over in the backfield, he'll be worth rostering, and I would stash him for now. Finally, I have Roshan Johnson. He's been productive over the last 2 weeks. He's getting goal line work for a good Bears offense, and he ran for 2 touchdowns in week 5. He's definitely worth rostering and can be flexed as needed.
All right, week 6 waiver wire pickups for tight ends. A lot of these guys are going to sound familiar because we've been telling you these are the guys you need to pick up. And some people just don't listen, and they're still sitting there in some leagues. And waiver priority number 1 for a tight end, it's got to be Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. If he's still available, snatch him up. He was limited through the first couple weeks, but hey, they are starting to unleash him. Musgrave is taking a back seat. Tucker Kraft is that guy. He is going to be their number 1 tight end. And hey, he's had 2 breakout performances back to back. So like I said, if you need a tight end, even if you don't need a tight end and you can afford to drop somebody else, pick up Tucker Kraft so somebody else doesn't pick him up. Next up, we got Tyler Conklin of the New York Jets. His last 3 games, he's been averaging 5 catches and 53 yards per game. I mean, hey, those aren't superstar numbers by any means, but in tight end position this year, which has kind of been well, it's kind of always go ahead, pick him up because Tyler Conklin, he is going to be serviceable for you. Also, somebody else that we said, Cade Otton. Over his last 3 games, he's been averaging 7 targets and 44 yards per game. Like Tyler Conklin, this is just kind of a performance for a tight end, but it's not a bad performance for a tight end, and that's kind of where we're looking in those mid-range to lower TE1 positions. Also, look at some proven vets. I know Mark Andrews has been dropped in a lot of leagues, and I did say to sit him last week because he had back-to-back 1-target games, but I'm not ready to give up on him. I still think he will be able to turn it around at some point, and you're going to want him on your bench when he does. Also, TJ Hawkinson, he began practicing. They have a bye week in week 6, but look for him to return in week 7. You never know what kind of diamond in the rough you could find.
Here's a little fancy football advice for you. When people are starting to drop players they shouldn't, panicking, getting into bye week issues. All right, it's blocking and picking up talent. What I mean by that is if there's talent at a very scarce position, like the tight end, Jake Ferguson. I saw him available in 3 leagues last week, and I scooped him up. I did have drop Khalil Shakir, who I'm pretty high on overall. I think he'll have more points for a season, but you don't want a consistent top 8 tight end out there. All you're doing is helping teams. So drop Khalil Shakir, who you probably only play during bye weeks, and pick up that tight end to help you. Also, look at the other teams, see what they're needing based on their injuries, based on their bye weeks, and you can always pick up a few players to block, especially later in the season, to help you win that championship.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
All right, our hot takes. First up, Deshaun Watson. Man, does he miss those special rubs or whatever he got? All right, he is hurting the NFL and making it harder for everyone to get fully guaranteed contract. I know they're getting closer, but the position players are still way off, and all a lot of GMs and owners have to do is go, "Hey, look at Deshaun," and that's a good reason why not to give fully guaranteed contracts. Next, the NHL season is about to start. Look for the Dallas Stars to finally end their Stanley Cup drought for the first time since 1999. They have the talent and they should win. Finally, Flacco and Dalton should be the QB measuring stick. If you have a QB and you don't think they're the right one, go ahead, bring in Flacco and Dalton. If your team does better with them out there on the offense, bam, you know you need to improve and draft a new quarterback or sign someone. All right, those are your hot takes.
Great hot takes, Josh. I'm going to go with baseball this week. I know everybody did baseball last week. I was the only one to rock with some NFL, but I'm going to get back here. I'm going to give you some baseball hot takes. Shohei Ohtani, fresh off his 50-50 season. Well, I think he's going to have another 50-50 season before his career is done. It might not happen next season, but definitely within the next 3 years, he's going to have another 50-50 season. I mean, the guy just had 54 home runs, 59 stolen bases. He's only one stolen base away from 60. Who says he doesn't have another 60-60 season? That would be insane. And let's not forget, he put up 130 RBIs. Just an insane season for him. He is that type of player where he can replicate this again. And I am still backing the Dodgers to win the World Series. So sorry, fans of the AL teams like Josh and your Yankees. It ain't happening. What you got for us?
My hot take for the week is that Deshaun Watson is Zach Wilson. It has been brutal to watch for Browns fans this season, and I can only imagine this is how Jets fans felt last year. At this point, there is little Watson can do better on a football field than Zach Wilson. Both can make the occasional beautiful throw. Both are somewhat athletic but lack that game-breaking speed. And both have been known to turn the ball over in key moments in games. And I do say this with apologies to Zach Wilson because he actually did have a better QB rating in his last year as a starter than Watson does this season. It's getting close to the time for the Browns to pull the plug on Watson and begin the process of moving on. Watson will be playing for his career next week versus the Eagles.
My hot take for this week is that none of the first rounders at quarterback in 2024 will be bust. Jaden Daniels looks like a future MVP for the Commanders. As Cliff Kingsbury has that offense geared to Daniels' skill set, he couldn't ask for a better situation to start his career. I also think Caleb Williams is going to be a star in the NFL. He's had a bit of a slow start, but I expect the Bears' offense to continually improve throughout this season. And Bo Nix has the benefit of learning from an experienced head coach in Sean Payton, and we can already see his week-to-week improvement happening. Lastly, I think that the Patriots' approach with Drake May has been spot on. There's no reason to throw him to the Wolves just yet when the supporting pieces are not quite there. So I think that he will really benefit from this time sitting out, and I like him to play well when his number is called.
This is a poker hand I played at TCH Social in Austin, Texas. In this hand, two players limped, and I raised to $20 in the cutoff with King of Hearts, Jack of Hearts. The big blind and both limpers made the call. The flop came King of Clubs, Six of Hearts, Eight of Clubs. So we flopped top pair with a backdoor flush draw. Here, action checks to me, and I have a really good hand, so I just come out and bet for $40. We should have the best hand here almost all of the time, and when I bet half pot, I give them a chance to tell me if I'm behind, because they're probably just going to raise off their strong hands here on a wet board. Action folds back to the last limper, and he makes the call. The turn comes the Five of Hearts, which gives me a flush draw now, and is a pretty big brick unless he just has 9-7. He checks to me, and I think I can still bet here for value if I don't go crazy. So I bet 100, and he makes the call after a little bit of thought. The river is very interesting because now he checks in the dark, and the Jack of Clubs rolls off. So I make two pair, but the front door flush does come in. Here I have about $250 back, and I don't really know if I should be betting or checking. I actually thought about the spot in game for about a minute before I finally checked it back. If he hadn't checked dark, I would always go for value here, and I think even with the dark check, I should still bet small. But in game, I check back, and we're good versus ace-5, so I doubt he would have called anyway. This is another hand I played at TCH Social. In this hand, we were playing 1-2. Under the gun limped, and I woke up on the button with Jack-9 of clubs. I raised to $15, and only the under the gun player made the call. The flop came 5-5-5. It checks to me, and here I decide to start telling the story that I have aces or kings. I bet 15, and he calls. I imagine he has overpairs here that I can bluff off by the river. The turn comes a deuce. Here it's going to be hard to get him to fold, as his overpairs are still liking this card a lot. He checks to me, and I take a size that'll leave me with a big overbet on the river to bluff with. I bet 30, and he makes the call. The river, however, now comes a jack. He checks to me one more time, and now I change my plan. I was going to go for that big overbet bluff sizing, but now I think I have the best hand here, so instead I want to take a sizing that he's likely to call. I decide to bet small for value. I go $65, and he tanks for a little bit and makes the call, and we are good.
Okay, we're playing 1-2 at WinStar. The ungun +1, who'd been pretty tight, raises to $15. Get one caller, and I look down at red pocket jacks and the small blind, and I re-raise to 41. The ungun +1 calls, and the other player folds. All right, not liking it. Like I said, the ungun +1 player is pretty tight, so we go to a flop. The flop is the 10 of clubs, the 6 of hearts, the 5 of hearts. I now lead out for $48, and the ungun +1 folds face up pocket queens. I'm shocked by this, but happy. They say you either have jacks, aces, or kings, and I can only beat one of those. And he folds face up, and like I said, I'm very happy. Okay, still playing 1-2 at WinStar, and we look down at Queen 10 offsuit from the cutoff. A raise at $13, and we get 5 callers. Of course we do. So we go to the flop. The flop is the Ace of Clubs, the King of Diamonds, and the Jack of Hearts. It checks to us, and we are loving this flop, so we want to get more money in the pot. So we bet for $27, and we get 3 callers. The turn is the 8 of hearts. Now, middle position leads for 60. I flat, and so does the small blind. The river is the 3 of hearts. The small blind now goes all in for 117. Middle position calls. I'm not liking it. I'm debating, but I do make the crying call. Middle position had ace jack for flop top 2. Small blind had king 4 of hearts for the runner backdoor flush, and our straight is cracked and we lose.
Soccer hooligans.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Added Minutes, and we're not going to go over any scores for you guys today or do any Wrexham watches or say anything like that, although, hey, Wrexham, they are crushing it right now. But we're going to go over the new Champions League format, well, because the format that we've known for the last 15, 20 years of 8 groups of 4 teams is finally changing. They are now shifting to a 36-team league phase. And how's this working? Well, there's going to be 4 pots of teams, 9 teams in each pot. Pot 1 being your best teams, Pot 4 being your worst teams. And essentially, you will get placed against 2 opponents from each pot. So two opponents from Pot 1, Pot 2, Pot 3, Pot 4. You're going to play 1 home game, 1 away in each of those. And that's how you're going to get your seeding in this league format. So you're going to be ranked 1 through 36 at the end of this. 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. Nothing changes there. Goal differential will come into play. But this is how it goes. Teams 25 through 36 are eliminated. They are out. If you finish in 9th through 24th, you're going to go into a knockout playoffs. And basically what this is you're going to go up against another club. Winner of that knockout phase makes the final round of 16 knockout. And teams that finish 1st through 8th in the league phase, they will automatically gain entry straight to the round of 16 knockout stages. Now, the round of 16 knockout stages, this is what will be familiar to you. This is the same round of 16 knockout stages that we've seen in previous years, where you will play a home tie and an away tie against whoever is in your knockout, and it is going the culmination of goals. The aggregate of goals out of your 2 games is how you will advance in that knockout stages. So that's going to be the same, and the final is obviously a one-off, 1 game on a neutral site. This year, mark your calendars, May 31st, 2025 in Munich, Germany. I've already got it on my calendar. I will not have any plans that day. I will just be watching the game. Where are you guys going to be watching the game at?
Here are a few Fool's Gold fantasy football players after week 5 that you do not want to fall for. First, Kyle Pitts, Atlanta Falcons. All right, I know he's a gifted athlete, but he's only getting about 5 targets a game, and he is super inconsistent. If there's someone out there like Kraft or trade for Ferguson that is just much safer, I would. Next, Darius Slay, New York Giants wide receiver. All right, he was the number 1 option this week, but Neighbors was gone. Neighbors is a target hog, and then Wandale Robinson. And then finally, before last week, he's only averaging 3.5 targets a game. So do not fall for these 2 Fool's Gold players.
Thanks for watching, guys. And if you made it to the end, please do us a favor and leave a comment. You guys are our best fans, and we would love to get more engaged with you. And this week, we're going to be doing a live stream on Sunday before the football games to talk starts and sits. We're going to be meeting up at TCH Social for this at 11 a.m. on Sunday. So stop by and say hello if you're in the area. We're going to be giving away merch, and we might play a little bit of poker as well.